this new webinar series titled Future Career Conversations, Reimagining Futures Through Humanities and Sciences. I sincerely apologize for this delay due to some technical glitch. The thought-provoking 3-episode webinar is presented by the SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Kattankulattur, in association with the Hindu. Today we are meeting for the first episode in this promising series, and the topic for discussion is Beyond Mark Sheets, Building Real-World Skills Through Humanities and Sciences. Given the rapid ascension in science and technology in the recent decades, parents and teachers have encouraged and perhaps even pushed children to pursue engineering or medical curricula for guaranteed jobs and lucrative careers. In the process, we may have also overlooked the importance of focusing on skills such as critical and emotional thinking, effective communication, and the ability to innovatively solve problems. From climate change and social inequities to resource scarcity and the way we live today, the modern day challenges require to be addressed from different perspectives and also with a human touch. As much we need our doctors and engineers, we also need a whole lot of other professionals to shape ideas and solve societal issues with empathy. But over the years, we have failed to see beyond the conventional study and career options. This has led to a fixation on ranks and results because scoring high marks is always a requisite for getting past the competitive examinations. But the choice is between academic scores or upscaling our social and other skills. Holistic education is perhaps the way forward if students have to understand how our subjects are related to each other and how things come together to fit in. Our distinguished panelists today will discuss how humanities and science need to work in tandem and help students develop skills to understand the world and the problems better and have the resilience and courage to face them. It is my privilege to introduce the panelists now. Professor A. Vinay Kumar is the Pro Vice Chancellor of SRM Institute of Science and Technology at Kattankulattur near Chennai. With 25 years of excellence in academics and administration, he brings a visionary approach and expertise to the forefront. From a professor of finance at IIM Lucknow to the director of NMIMS University Bengaluru, he has several milestones to his credit. Professor Vinay has been a part of several successful missions involving curriculum reappraisal, course designs, launching diploma and executive training programs, chairing prominent committees, research initiatives, handling accreditation processes, and much more. His ardent search for knowledge and his dedication towards learning, coupled with his enthusiastic approach, has helped SRMIST achieve its mission and goals marked by innovations and futuristic thinking. A warm welcome to you, Professor Vinay.
Thank you.
Our other panelist is Professor A. Joseph Dorairaj. He's Emeritus Professor, School of English and Foreign Languages at Gandhigram Rural Institute, Tamil Nadu. Following his stint as the acting Vice Chancellor of the Institute in 2013-14, he was selected for the Fulbright Scholarship in 2014 and was an Erasmus Mundus Visiting Scholar in 2015 to Belgium. Professor Dorairaj has published 55 articles, authored 5 books, and edited 3 volumes. And he is the founder editor of Gandhigram Literary Review. He has also guided 22 PhD students. He has been a visiting professor of philosophy and literature at Satyanilayam, Chennai, Osmania University, and University of Kashmir. As a member of the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, he has the distinction of appraising more than 40 institutions across the country. So greetings to both of you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And since both of you come from a little different background, I would just start by asking how challenging or easy was life for you?
maybe I'll start.
Yes, sir, please.
Please.
Life was quite kind to me in a certain sense. The systems that I've encountered in academics, they're quite diverse in the sense that I was at IIM Lucknow. Of course, I've traveled to various countries, some of the best universities in the world. And each of these universities have a different format and different way of, delivering academic content. And after I've taken over as a Pro Vice Chancellor here at SRMIST, this is a different system with a different philosophy. And yeah, it is difficult, but it is also a great opportunity to learn. And the assimilation of, best practices across the world, I think are something to be, one should be open to. And, that is what is going to actually make administrative jobs more interesting. So if you are open, you can probably change, and that's the way it works. So we are emulating a lot of things, and I think there's a long way, but yeah, I think we are in the right direction.
Dr. Raj.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm happy with the question. Life has been good to me. I think I should thank the stars, even though I do not believe in stars. So life has been good to me, but I would like to single out 3 milestones. Number one, as a student, whether it was high school education or college and university education, I was trained as a Jesuit. Now, Jesuits are the pioneers in education, and they run some of the eminent institutions in India, like Loyola College, Chennai, St. Joseph's College, Trichy, St. Xavier's, Calcutta, St. Xavier's, Bombay. So I am a product of Jesuit education, and I also happen to teach at St. Joseph's College, Trichy. So I have imbibed a lot of Jesuit values and tradition and legacy. So that is an important factor that has shaped my thinking. Number two, in addition to my specialization in English language and literature, because basically I belong to the Department of English Studies. So in addition to my specialization in English language and literature, I've also received a lot of training in philosophy, particularly Western philosophy, of course, Indian philosophy included. So this philosophical orientation has also shaped my thinking to a large extent. And the third and last dimension is I have spent 33 years at Gandhigram Rural Institute, deemed to be university, which does a lot for rural empowerment. And the institution itself is based on Gandhian philosophy and ideals. And I have imbibed a lot of these values, and I am grateful to the institution for this kind of orientation given to me. So very quickly, these are the 3 milestones, and I am happy with what I have achieved in life, and I look forward to achieving more and also giving back to the society that has taken care of me all these 65 years.
Right. Thank you, panelists. Dr. Vinay, we were having a little bit of backroom discussions also, and we talked about how the engineering and medical courses were perhaps, their outcomes were perhaps more easily visible when compared to opportunities for humanities stream, which has remained restrained for a long time. So I would like you to answer, how do we change this very ingrained perception about the subjects under humanities stream, mainly because people's primary concern is that it may not fetch a good enough job. And in India, majority study for employability.
No, I think that is, given thing in a certain sense. Parents do influence decision making in a very significant way for the wards, and that's why what happens is generally the choice making is quite restricted for the students. And it so happens that a lot of people after doing engineering, they realize that actually it was not meant for me. And then they change their. So I've seen, for instance, while I was at IIM Lucknow, I over 25 years. So I have so many types of students who are predominantly from engineering, but became musicians, became, artists, became people who were fund managers. And, there's a diverse set of careers people have. Some people have actually taken agriculture. And also, I mean, they sort of cut off from the mainstream and went back to villages. And so, in other words, so I was wondering as to why this happens, because when they say that the engineering path was something that was determined, thereafter I've taken MBA in a sort of a continuum, and after MBA also, the outcomes that I've achieved is not good enough for me. So the discovery is still on, and I think that is where it's important to understand that there are innate capabilities of the students, and if parents can discover it, it is good. But the discovery has to happen, and there are diverse courses, and engineering and medicine and law have more precise outcomes, but there are outcomes for a whole gamut of other courses, and the outcomes need not necessarily be just the job and things like that. There's several outcomes that you can possibly think of. That's the general mindset. But I think over a certain period of time, let's say, if you look at the current generation versus, let's say, 10 years ago, this imbalance was quite dramatic in the sense that it was very, very sharp. But actually, now it's changing. A lot of universities who have entered into the Indian university system through the philosophy of liberal arts significantly have contributed to this kind of a thinking in a certain way. But it's changing. It's not very significant change, but it's changing. Now, anybody who would want to basically pursue humanities and sciences program, they need to basically sort of evaluate a set of parameters that will give a better course experience. I mean, I think that should be the debate for parents and also students, rather than merely seeking jobs. And that's the essential contradiction.
Professor Duraraj, I would like to ask, I mean, there's no doubt that we have this very fanatic obsession with marks and grades. So how would you explain to a student, that whether they are really that important or not important in the world when we are faced with real life challenges?
As you put it rightly, I think there is a lot of obsession with marks, grades, and percentiles. I mean, the fact is, not only are students obsessed with marks, grades, and percentiles, even their parents are equally obsessed with marks, grades, and percentiles. And this has to change, and change dramatically and significantly. I mean, we can initiate a lot of steps as far as this particular transition is concerned. But I would like to talk about two issues. Number one, we need to ask this question. We need to address the students, address the parents, and address the academic community itself. Do marks, do CGPAs translate into competencies and job opportunities? You may have scored 80, 85, but then this doesn't automatically qualify you as a skilled person, as a competent person. So therefore, the most important question is, do marks translate into competencies and capabilities and translate further into employment and job opportunities? So this juncture, what we need to do is, the educational system itself should be revamped so that the students are weaned away from the obsession with marks, and we have to slowly orient them towards humanities. Of course, this is a cumbersome process, but thanks to NEP and other policy initiatives, we have already made this move, and I am sure with a little bit of push and with a little bit of engineering, we should be able to motivate and orient the students towards the humanities.
I would like our joinees to start posting their questions in the Q&A box, which is open for you now as we carry forward this discussion. Professor Vinay, I was also thinking, like that many times students, perhaps they don't even realize what they are learning and why. And further, what makes things worse is that instead of testing our students for what they have learned and how to think, we are all the time, seem to be testing them for what they are rote learning. I mean, you're getting my point, sir.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, would you agree with that? And how do we kind of bring in a change?
So I'd like to add, before we get to this question, I'd like to add to the previous question.
Right, sure.
I think Professor Doreraj has rightly put it, that the obsession has to be somehow weaned into more competency-based kind of a framework. Now, actually, there are studies that sort of evaluated people with high IQ versus their outcomes over a long period of time, in the sense that it's in a longitudinal sense, I'm talking. If you repeatedly sort of track those people who have very high academic performance versus what they are currently doing and how they have actually evolved over a period of time. Now, there is it's quite surprising. I mean, it's not surprising because now people know that actually there is very little correlation between the people with very high academic performance versus their annual income. Earlier, there was a correlation. Now that correlation started diminishing, and actually, people who were university dropouts, okay, and probably school dropouts have made much better, have achieved much better outcomes than people who have actually went through university and formal education type of this thing and became meritorious students in their respective fields. So, I mean, there is evidence to believe that, firstly, there is straight correlation is not there in a certain sense. So you should basically sort of give that much importance to academic performance, and it should not overwhelm your understanding about academic performance. While it is very, very important that you acquire skills, because that's what is going to be with you for the rest of your life, and which will actually shape your outcomes, and that should be the focus of academic experience. Now, coming to the question that you've asked, the fundamental thing is, firstly, some of the teaching methodologies. Generally, what happens is, if the teaching methodology emphasizes that student performance in the end-term exam will determine everything for their ranks, their percentile, their grade, and things like that. Now, that kind of an emphasis, typically happens is students starts giving undue importance to rote learning, because you have to crack that exam. So, what are the questions? What are the previous questions? What type of answers will give you the best possible marks? And then there are a whole lot of people who will actually sort of train you for this kind of a thing. Say that, hey, these are the questions, potential questions. All you have to do is just night before, I'll send you these 10 questions. Okay, a small, curated learning capsule. You read that and, you can crack the exam. Or possibly you just work for 10, 15 days and you can basically crack the exam. Now, cracking the exam becomes important because the assessment itself was overwhelmingly emphasizing one single exam. And now that has to change, and it has relatively changed in the university format. Now there is something called formative assessment and also the summative assessment. The formative assessment also is very, very important in the sense that there'll be repeated exams, quizzes, assignments as you go through the program. And then whether each of these assessments that happen continuously over a period of time, all through the semester, are actually testing you something. Now, whether you demonstrate a certain learning or not is going to be finally assessed in a summative end-term exam. So this itself is going to change that emphasis on grades to a certain extent. Because then what happens is, if the students start actually working for each assignment, for each quiz, and each of those presentations, and a whole lot of other things that are going to happen inside the class, the experience itself matters more. Okay. Of course, the grade is still relevant, but the point is that actually ensures that if 99% or 95% of the students will go through a certain experience, irrespective of whether they want to excel in that course or not. Okay. So I think that itself is going to be a very important thing that needs to be observed, and students should have that kind of an appreciation. Again, if you say that, just before the quiz, I'm going to actually prepare. Just before the assignment, I'll only work for the night and submit the assignment. Now, that is not also going to give you the type of experience. The continuous assessment is essentially made in such a manner that you're actually doing your work on a daily basis. Okay. I think that that shift is going to give slightly, the people's emphasis on end-term exam versus the formative assessments will change a little bit of that perception.
May I add a couple of points?
Sure.
Okay. So earlier I said the important question is whether grades translate into competencies and capabilities, and whether they translate further into jobs and employment opportunities. In this context, I would like to shed some light on what is happening in the academia. Now, if you look at the mark sheets, the student has scored anywhere between, I'm talking about even average students in arts and science institutions, they have scored 60%, 70%, 75%. And if you look at their CGPA, it is 6, 7, or even 8 out of 10. So which means on paper, they are competent and qualified. But then when you interact with them, when you ask them some questions, you realize that they have very poor thinking skills, they have very poor cognitive skills, and much worse, they have very poor life skills. Now, there are many factors responsible for this. One of the important factor is the educational system, particularly in terms of the teaching methodology and the assessment pattern. Now, all of us are familiar with the Bloom's taxonomy, particularly the revised taxonomy, where we talk about 6 levels of knowledge, and this is arranged in a hierarchical fashion. Very often what happens when we talk about academic transactions happening inside the classroom and also the assessment pattern, we raise only lower order thinking skills. Who wrote this book? When was this poem written? Define a particular law. So which means the student doesn't have the opportunity or even the challenge to look beyond, remember, recall questions. How about analyzing something? How about evaluating something? How about applying the concepts and theories learned in classrooms to reality? So these are missing, but unfortunately some change has come in. So in addition to the lower order thinking skills, as far as the Bloom's taxonomy is concerned, these days there is an increase to focus on the higher order thinking skills, so that when the student leaves the institution, he or she will be endowed and blessed with thinking skills, cognitive skills, and to some extent life skills. And in that context, the marks will translate into employment opportunities. Anyway, I'm happy that this is happening right now, but we have to travel a long way ahead.
Very well said, but based on what both of you have said, there are already tons of questions where people are saying that it is the same colleges and universities that demand marks and have cutoffs. So automatically it puts pressure on parents and children.
Actually, it is changing a little bit. The point is already universities have realized that especially for in the new NEP format, the eligibility criteria to get into any program is the basic minimum requirement is 50%, and anybody can apply to any type of course. Kind of that thinking is already in place, in the sense that, of course, it's not implemented to the extent that it should be done by each of the universities who are actually trying to incorporate the NEP framework, the new education policy framework. But gradually this is happening in the sense that, for instance, at SRM, we have actually relaxed the eligibility criteria so that people will be eligible. Any person can apply to an accountancy course or an economics course or a film studies course. I mean, you don't need to have any specific eligibility. All you have to do is you need to have +2, and then some 50% is the minimum cutoff, and then you can apply. Of course, thereafter, it's like a sort of a framework. You can't offer seats to everybody because you have limited seats. So obviously, some criteria are going to be there. These criteria are filtration criteria. Okay, in the sense that if you say that 60% is the criteria that we want to apply, then it sort of filters a few people, and then we can only work with some people. But the emphasis uh, is uh, is diminishing. I mean, there is still the emphasis, but that emphasis is actually slightly going towards opening up to students who want, who essentially the students needs to have a certain type of an aptitude. And a lot of universities now are actually interviewing also. Okay. So that, I do the initial filtration and then I'll actually talk to the student. And if the student has the aptitude, we would rather work with students who have interest in a course rather than, somebody who actually gets selected because of a certain numeric criteria.
Okay, may I add something?
Yes.
Please, sir.
Okay, now I am a parent. I am also a teacher and I belong to the academic community, and I do realize the value and importance of marks. So without marks, you cannot join any institution. So marks are important. As a parent, I realize this. As a teacher, I realize this. As a member of an academic community, I realize this. Now, my plea, my request is marks are important, but let us not be obsessed with marks. Let us not get bogged down by marks. We should be able to go beyond marks. In other words, as a teacher and as a parent, it is my duty, it is my responsibility to enhance the thinking capacities of my students. So inside the classroom, apart from or going beyond remember, recall questions, I throw something for analysis, throw something for evaluation. What do you think of this person's policy? What do you think of this initiative? What do you think of this particular change in sports or whatever it is? So we need to initiate discussions and conversations. This is as a teacher. Now, as a parent also, I have an equal responsibility. The dining table conversation, so where we sit and talk about a lot of issues. So eventually what I want to put across is this: yes, marks are important, because without marks, the students cannot go forward. Marks are important, but marks are not everything. So there is a world beyond marks, and that is the world of cognitive capabilities along with life skills, and teachers are responsible for this, and equally parents are also responsible for this.
So when we talk, yes.
One point. So essentially, if you achieve a higher percentage is a good indicator of discipline. So the one who actually works for a higher percentage ends up getting higher percentage because it requires a certain type of study, uh, type of work and this that. It's not something that is going to happen just like that. So it's a good indicator. So one should not diminish the value of percentages or academic performance. But as Professor Durairaj said, that there is a whole world outside the academic grades.
Right. So when we actually talk about this world beyond the mark sheet, and when we also talk about how universities and colleges are perhaps relaxing their eligibility criteria to some extent, but still, there are these very specific doubts in everybody's mind. And again, we have several questions which are repeating the same query, that what exactly are the opportunities after the graduation in humanities in terms of career and livelihood? So I think either these can be answered, I do not know, subject specific wise, or in general, whether we could consider humanities as a stream and kind of offer
So
some guidance.
I basically, right now through the NEP framework, we have a sort of a format called liberal education format. In the liberal education format, typically one can pursue a majors, probably majors in accountancy. And if you pursue majors, you can also choose another distinctively different area for study for minors. For instance, film studies could be your minors. Accountancy plus film studies, or accountancy plus data sciences, or a person who studies computer applications can study psychology. So, in other words, there is already a sort of an emphasis in the NEP philosophy that multidisciplinary skilling is the future. So, even the companies want people with that kind of a problem-solving approach. If you are just an accountant and if you are asked to solve problems, you'll only think like an accountant. So one should actually be able to change hats, and that's how will the complexity of future problems you'll be able to solve. Unless you have this multidisciplinary approach, it is very difficult for us to actually develop talent to meet the future challenges. We have a lot of uncertainty in businesses now, uncertainty in governments, uncertainty in the way geopolitics is working and things like that. So I mean, the future generation, the skill set that is needed is definitely a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. So one of the key things is most universities have now implemented this kind of format. SRM has also implemented it. So you have a whole gamut of minors that you can take. You have a whole gamut of majors that you can take. A science, a biotechnology guys can actually take an accountancy minors. Okay, I mean, this is all possible now. So it's no more one single domain-specific framework. It's actually changing now. So it definitely offers much better opportunities, even from the perspective of career outcomes. But career outcomes is one thing. You can actually start a business, and you can do many more things. That's possible now.
Okay, may I add something?
Please, sir, go ahead.
Okay, very briefly. Now, when we talk about knowledge, when we talk about disciplines, invariably we talk about three streams. We talk about the humanities, we talk about the social sciences, and we talk about the pure sciences. Now, let us be honest, in terms of employment opportunities, there are more and there are better employment opportunities for sciences than the options available for the humanities. It is a fact, and let us not hide it. For instance, someone who has done engineering and technology and someone who has done philosophy. Let us be very clear, the opportunities for a student of philosophy are much less than the options available for a student of engineering and technology. Now, having said this, and I would like to go back to what Professor Vinay said. He said if a student is endowed or blessed with critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, good communication skills, irrespective of the discipline he or she belongs to, he or she will certainly land a job. So if I have good thinking skills, good at critical thinking, good at problem skills, and I have excellent communication skills with a good dose of, let us say, emotional intelligence or empathy or resilience, I am certain to get jobs. So parents, you needn't be worried about it. So anyone endowed and blessed with good thinking skills and thinking skills in the sense critical thinking and problem solving skills and communication skills, your son or daughter will certainly land a job irrespective of the stream that he or she has specialized in.
Still, there are questions on.
Yeah, I'll just give a simple this thing. I mean, I completely concur with Dr. Dheeraj. There's at SRM, there's one person who was actually was one of the organizers of an event. The event basically is come up with a business idea and sort of run that business for 3 days. The event is for only 3 days. So this guy starts a small sweet shop, and that sweet shop, he runs it for 3 days. After the course, he starts, a real business. Okay, and that business is now sort of a reasonably sized business. It's now present in Tamil Nadu and also in Kerala. He has some 250 different outlets, and with a significant kind of this thing. So I mean, see the learning experience when you have, in class, out of the class, if you have these experiences, they shape outcomes. Outcomes need not necessarily be a sort of a corporate job. Okay, the essential this thing is, how do you open up these mental faculties through multidisciplinary approach? That's the key thing. And if you have these life skills of critical thinking, problem solving, okay, and have the enthusiasm to actually work towards something, there are limitless opportunities.
Yeah, but I mean, many times we could also highlight these very encouraging case studies as a source of motivation. And as you said, they could influence outcome. But there are still tons of questions where, I don't know, mostly parents want to know what are those specific fields or areas within this domain of humanities that are in demand in job market for a promising future.
So, for instance, in psychology, there is clinical psychology that is actually, counseling is something that is picking up. And even, language studies, people want narratives to be written in a certain way. We've seen people who have done their BA English actually hired by some websites, and this is happening in a certain sense. You need to write narratives that are searchable. Okay, and it's possible to write things in a way that is friendly to search engine optimization and this that. So these skills are getting developed. People are, trained in these areas now. And see, AI is one of the considerations that people talk about. Firstly, how do we integrate learning through AI, and how it influences learning is something that is every university is trying to grapple with. But AI is in all the things, all the domains. Psychology, as I told you, psychology is picking up. Accountancy, especially accountancy, if you have the skill of doing accountancy in a multi-country environment, international accounting, that's never going to die, because reporting is always going to be there. So, and governance, if you are an expert in accounting, you know how accountability works, and therefore governance. So all of these things are in humanities. There is a trend. Also, we see that film studies, short films, documentary making. Okay, these are also picking up in humanities. Sciences, of course, it's a traditional kind of this thing. Biotechnology, biomedical sciences, people have a lot of interest. In addition to that, these days, defense studies is also picking up in a certain sense. People are interested to understand geopolitics, international affairs. Okay, there is interest that is emerging now. Okay, but actually, even the traditional courses, they are given a certain twist. For instance, accountancy with international accountancy in finance will go a long way. English, but English with search engine optimization, some computational linguistics will go a long way, and things like that. So each university is working. We are also working on improving our curriculum so that it makes sense for the incoming students.
Okay, I would like to add something. Since I belong to the humanities and I am a student of English language and literature, I am also a professor of English language and literature. So I would like to share with you three possible options for your children. Number one, your child, son or daughter, I think he or she can jolly well choose MA English language and literature because there are plenty of job opportunities for MA English students. Now, I would like to list out some of the opportunities. He or she can become a teacher at the school level, at the college level, at the university level. He or she can become a translator. He or she can become a content writer, and if the program as integrated technology, he or she can become a specialist in digital humanities, where there is an intersection between technology on the one hand and literature on the other. So therefore, I would strongly recommend that your son or daughter goes in for the master's program in English. So this is option one. Option two, there are plenty of opportunities for language students. If your son or daughter opts for MA French or MA German or MA Spanish or MA Chinese, there are a lot of job opportunities, particularly in the field of translation. So you please grab it with both the hands. So if your daughter or son does MA French or MA German or MA Spanish, plenty of opportunities. So this is the second opportunity. This is the second option. The third option, mass communication and journalism. Of course, you need to excel. So if you excel in mass communication and journalism, there are plenty of opportunities as a journalist, as an editor. And what Professor Vinay was saying, you can branch off into film studies. So humanities, lot of potential for English students, MA English students, for MA French, German, and Chinese students, and also for students who pass out of good institutions with a master's in communication and journalism. So plenty of opportunities. So please grab them and grab them with both your hands.
I'm glad the both of you have taken these subjects specifically because, again, there are questions very, very subject related. I'm doing English, I'm doing philosophy, economics, political science, whether these subjects are future or not. That those questions are kind of repeated in the Q&A box. I think UPSC is perhaps another good kind of career to pursue when people are doing humanities subjects. Since you talked about technology, sir, somebody is asking that how can we ensure that technological advancements are guided by ethical frameworks rooted in the humanities, and what is the guarantee that in the humanities job market, the jobs won't be taken away by AI? Safe to unmute. Yeah.
Okay. The basic this thing is AI is going to have disruptions in the sense that AI is fundamentally going to change the way we are going to live, and in the next 5 years is going to change quite dramatically, and in next 10 years it's going to be even more dramatic. And this is going to happen. I mean, nobody can stop it. And already it is entering into academics. It's entering into everything that we are. Quite seamlessly, it is actually getting into our lives. But fundamentally, there is you got to look at all the technologies with a critical perspective. Every technology has an operational risk in the sense that what if the technology fails? By the way, the World Economic Forum says that there is going to be a huge cybersecurity threat that can be anticipated. Like, if you build a very beautiful thing, there is always this, fear that you might break it. And if you break it, what's going to happen? There's going to be a huge problem. So tomorrow, let's say if there is a failure in power grid, which has happened in France and Spain just recently, and they were the outage was for a few weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, and then it was not very easy for the people to actually work their way. So you will increasingly have these uncertainties as we go along. In other words, no technology is going to ever replace life skills. No, there's a very famous show called Man versus Wild. Okay, in the sense that if you think that the solutions are going to replace your life completely, and then if you get accustomed to your new technology framework, and the solutions are going to emerge from AI, and you are going to rely on AI for everything, and that is going to be a huge mistake. Okay, and the traditional academic frameworks are supposed to be there, and there should be an appreciation for these things. And the life skills that are going to be built into these things are going to be relevant for eternity. It's never going to diminish. In fact, we have to prepare them for this. Okay, just like people say, hey, there was a pandemic, and are we prepared for the pandemic? Similarly, are we prepared for an operational risk that will change the way that will have a huge disruption in the technology space? Then what is going to happen? How are we going to live if, let's say, there's going to be no power for 2 weeks or a month? Then the question comes, you got to live on your own in a certain way. And so my point is, the all of these courses, there is going to be, AI is going to significantly change the way we deliver them, but I don't think AI is going to replace. Okay, AI is going to contribute to innovation. Okay, so the traditional knowledge systems are still going to be there, they're still going to be relevant, but the essential this thing is, how do you use AI but not totally get overwhelmed by AI? If you totally get overwhelmed by AI is going to give you a shock.
Okay,
Yeah,
now
I've also read that AI will actually not snatch away jobs, but perhaps transform jobs. And that is where you have to innovatively think. Yeah, Dr.
okay,
Duraidas.
now two quick observations. Observation number one, this is, I'm addressing this to students. Now, whatever stream you belong to, even if you have taken the humanities, whether you're doing philosophy or English language and literature, please equip yourself with technology skills. That is very important. So you don't argue, after all, I'm doing philosophy, so why should I bother about technology? Why should I bother about learning something about AI or chat GBT? Whether you are a student of the sciences or the humanities, because technology has invaded the whole educational system, you should be conversant and familiar with technology, particularly AI. So therefore, I would go one step further, and then I am addressing parents. Like, if you are looking for opportunities for your students as far as admission is concerned, so find out, okay, so this university, the MA curriculum, MA English curriculum, or the MA philosophy curriculum, they have integrated technology with academics. So you look for such institutions. They would train your sons and daughters in a better way, and job opportunities also will double, where the academics has been integrated with technology. So this is the first point that I wanted to make. The second point, you brought in the ethical dimension. Now, Professor Vinay also talked about the ethical dimension. I think we needn't worry too much about the ethical dimension, because as far as institutions are concerned, we have the ethics committee, we have an ombudsman. So I think they will take care of it. So as individuals, as students, particularly, we needn't worry too much about AI and how whether it will snatch away the student's job. And the ethical dimension, I think as students, we needn't worry too much about these factors, because the ethical committee or the ombudsman, I think it is largely their responsibility.
I'm very touched by one question, presumably from a student who's writing, if not with grades, then how we assure our parents that what we are fundamentally good at, what we are doing. And because we cannot change their idea of success. So how do we convince our parents?
So let's say if you build a business, and then if the business is able to achieve certain sales, okay, then your parents will be convinced, because you know what, if your funders get convinced, it is not going to be difficult for your parents to get convinced. See, you live in an environment where you know our generation was totally different. You know, we had very limited opportunity. Now the space is completely different. You know, there is a complete startup ecosystem in every city. There are angels who are looking for opportunities to invest. And there are so many business ideas that are floating around. People are hunting for patents. People are trying to see how do we commercialize, how do we sort of reinvent solutions in a certain way. And there is a whole ecosystem that is developing as we speak. I mean, it is also growing quite rapidly. Now, if you, if your grade is not great, but if you are ending up with a business, okay, which is possible, right? I mean, who is going to stop ideas coming to fruition? Nobody can stop that, right? So in a certain sense, convincing is something which is going to be a continuous thing. It's not going to be like, you will come up with a presentation and your parents are going to be convinced. No, it's not going to work like that. It's a gradual process. When you have an idea, when you're chasing a certain dream, that dream has to be communicated over a period of time. And then if you reasonably achieve a certain milestone, your parents will also realize that there are certain tangible outcomes that you have achieved. There are certain tangible milestones that you have that you currently can boast of, and things like that. And therefore, parents are going to get convinced. But I think what one should emphasize is, what kind of experience are you looking at in a program? How do you want to develop yourself? What are the opportunities that the university is offering? There are a whole lot of opportunities at the university. Are you looking for these opportunities? Okay. Or are you just coming to the college and leaving to your home every day, and you can completely waste your time in the college, or you can actually chase opportunity. The ecosystem is present.
Right. When economics
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I would like to add. Now, this particular student, I think he or she is in a dilemma. How is he or she going to convince his or her parents? Because the parents, they understand the language of marks and grades. Okay, so how do I convince a parent that your daughter has done well? Okay, if your daughter has got 70% or 80%, then the parent obviously will feel happy and proud. But in addition to the mark sheet, if the student is also able to produce a call letter or a job letter, call letter in the sense, okay, you have got admission for PhD in this university with a stipend of, let us say, 30,000 or 40,000 rupees, or a job offer with a salary of 60,000 or 75,000, I am sure the parents will be doubly convinced. So one is the parents need marks, but going beyond marks, if the parents are also able to equate the success of the academic success of a student in terms of money, I think that would be a double advantage.
The question from an economics student who's now pursuing MA Economics. He feels that all the sustainable and successful careers or jobs are very science-driven and science-oriented, and perhaps finds himself at crossroads at this stage. So what would be your advice?
The student is currently pursuing MA?
MA Economics.
MA Economics, okay. So MA Economics, if you are already in MA Economics program, then I think there are opportunities in research. Okay, a lot of even corporates are interested in economic research. Okay, there are a lot of agencies who only do research. There are investment banks that continuously do research, and if you are able to generate something called a sell side report, okay, and of course it requires training, and how do you develop economic perspectives, geopolitical perspectives, and things like that. And then these reports are consumed by investment agencies, investment banks. So my point is, look for specific skills, okay, that corporates are looking at or research institutions are looking at. It could be in behavioral finance, it could be on game theoretics of geopolitics, or it could be a whole lot of things. The one of the cue that you can get is search economics jobs that are trending. What type of jobs are trending, what are the skills that the companies, investment banks are looking at. I think you can completely pick up some skills based on that. You can get a reasonably good career in economics itself. But then it requires, what are the skills that you are supposed to pick up at this stage? Okay. So typically the point is, usually this happens in MBA education. In MBA, what happens if somebody comes into the business program, day one, the person is actually thinking about after 2 years where I'm going to end up. Okay. Now that kind of a perspective is needed for every undergrad, every postgrad course. So when you enter into it, you should be searching for what type of outcomes that are possible. What are the whole gamut of outcomes that are possible, and what are the outcomes that you should be pursuing? Then what happens is it is easier to build those CV points. We call it CV points. I mean, if you write a research paper, it will show in your CV. If you present a conference paper, it will show that you can show it in your CV. So these things will sell the CV in a certain way to the corporates, and they will look for some skills, and they will ask you whether you have achieved those skills or whether you have those skills or not. So it is one way of actually planning your outcomes in a certain way, and it is possible for every graduate, not just economics.
For the cost of being repetitive, I think there are questions from humanities students who are pursuing various programs in different subjects. They could be in their first year, second year, third year, but they're writing that we are unable to figure out a suitable career for ourselves. So I think some reiteration we have to.
No, see, I'll tell you. The point is, so we introduced at SRM, a sort of a mentoring program, which where we will do a sort of a very rigorous psychometric analysis, and what type of career outcomes are, good for you. It also gives you a suggested type of broadly, not specifically, broadly, that you are good in your communication, analytical skills, your problem solving type of skills, you're a good team player, and some of these attributes are going to be known to you in a certain way through this test, and some of these some attributes can be developed also. Okay, you lack in this team kind of this thing. Hey, can you do some team activities so that you have a better team skills? Okay, for the next 3 years. So next 3 or 4 years. Right now it's 4-year programs, right? So the point is that itself is giving you a sort of a framework about yourself, and also giving you potential job outcomes that you can plan, or career outcomes that you can plan. So it is an indicative thing. Okay, in other words, it's not going to be an open box, and you don't know. There are a whole lot of things available. Which one to pick is going to be a difficult thing. With this kind of an analysis, it just sort of narrows down a few things for you, so that you can work on them. Maybe journalism is a good thing.
Okay. Now I have a simple suggestion. The suggestion is think out of the box. Now, when I talk to my students, they think of only 2 options. Number one, when I talk to, let us say, MA English students or MA Economics students, option number 1 to get into academics, to become teachers, or they will say we are preparing for taking group 1 and group 2 exams. So these are the only 2 options available to most students. So what I would suggest is cast your net far and wide, think of other options, think outside the box. Okay, so if you explore, there are other options. You can become entrepreneurs. Even if you have done MA English, you can do something else. Absolutely. Even if you have done MA Psychology, you can think of some other option. So their mindset should change. Otherwise, they all stick to one particular option. I have done MA English, I should become a teacher, either at the school or at the college, or join a coaching center and prepare for Group 1 or Group 2 exams. Their world ends with these limited options. So they have to think out of the box and cast their net far and wide and think of other options for which they need a little bit of courage, a little bit of guts, because they have to stick their necks out, and like they should have the courage to embrace change and be innovative as well. Sometimes they may meet with failure, but they should have the courage to go ahead.
There are some school students who are writing that our schools focus on academics. There's a lot of pressure. So during our school years, how can we and what are those social skills and life skills we can learn, or how should we learn? And likewise, the teacher is asking how could she contribute to a classroom to increase a child's competency?
So fundamentally, I mean, the schools also in the NEP framework, now I don't know how far they are implemented in the schooling system, but the schooling system also has significantly changed in a certain. There is an emphasis of picking up multiple languages. There is an emphasis on picking up, even some kind of a vocational skill and things like that. But the point is actually, if you have not done anything like that, when you enter into a university program, the university program is actually they're built with this assumption that you do a certain type of work in the school. So we prepare you for some things that you are not doing in the school. So in other words, we already know that there is a certain type of training that you went through. So we should basically sort of emphasize. So that's why, in SRM, for instance, there are a whole lot of clubs and committees, club committee activities. And in fact, every week there are multiple events that are continuously happening, organized by students only. So if you have not done some things in the school, I think when you enter into a university program, look for these club committees, and there is a club of photography. If you are interested in photography, get into that club. There is a club of vocal singing, and if you are interested, get into that. Or there is a club on entrepreneurship. Okay, so if you are interested in entrepreneurship, you should get into that club. So a whole lot of clubs are available. Even in biotechnology, there is a club which basically talks about the biotech opportunities and how do you basically build a molecule. I'm not a biotechnology guy, but there's a club that talks about biotechnology trends. And so all of these club committee things are essentially designed to address this issue that you don't have that kind of a latitude in the schooling system, but in the college, when you enter into college, these things are available for you. But you should. That's what I'm saying. Even Dr. Duraraj was saying that look for opportunities. The university is actually giving you some space. If you are open to working with these clubs, if they're open to the industry, how the industry is working, you will see that these, you can develop yourself in a holistic way.
So what is digital humanities and what are the possibilities?
In humanities?
Digital. Somebody's inquiring about the possibilities of digital humanities.
Okay.
What is digital humanity?
I think I'm not an expert in humanities. Probably Dr.
Okay, I'll share some thoughts about digital technology. I would like to make two observations. Now, digital technology is something new, something innovative. Digital technology talks about the intersection between the humanities on the one hand and technology on the other. I repeat, it talks about the intersection between technology on the one hand and the humanities on the other. Fine. Now, I'll give you two examples. Now, what happened was, if you look at the history of digital humanities, it all started with preparing a concordance of Thomas Aquinas's work. Now, Thomas Aquinas was a medieval Christian philosopher and theologian, and his two major works are Summa Theologia and Summa Contrast Gentil. So, wanted to find out a particular word or particular phrase, how many times does it occur? So in other words, to put it in very simple language, technically it is called a concordance, but to put it in very simple language, it talks about word count. Okay, so this particular word, this particular phrase has appeared 7,000 times, 802 times. So what are the contexts in which the word has appeared? So you use technology to talk about literature. Or if I can give you one more example, you have the Walt Whitman archive. Okay, so we come across the poems of Whitman in print. But what about the audio version? What about the audio visual version? So these are good examples of digital technologies, and job opportunities are increasing manifold for students of digital technology. But the only challenge is they need to be very good at integrating technology with humanity. So this is in brief about digital humanities. Lot of material is available on the net as far as digital humanities is concerned. So integrating technology into literature and other humanities subjects, so that is digital technology.
I think I'll come back to the crux of the discussion. Like, what is it that is ailing our education system at the moment? And why humanities is still being considered as kind of a leftover stream to be taken? I mean, why don't people or students and parents feel so confident in putting their children into humanities stream? Is it the assessment system, or because we are not able to integrate skill training or the multidisciplinary approach yet into our curriculum? Or maybe the industry is not yet acknowledging whatever innovative shift we are making in curriculum. What exactly is it that is kind of, in some ways also pulling it back?
In a certain sense, it is, all of the above, in the sense that all of these things have a role to play. The industry has a certain type of preference. Generally the opportunities that, so if you look at, we have borrowed a lot from the West when we developed these courses. It's all this technology of offering courses essentially are, we took programs from the West and replicated them here. Even engineering, but within engineering, that we have more demand for computer science than any other engineering field. The reason why other engineering fields have actually diminished in value is because there are no opportunities. Why there are no opportunities is because there is no manufacturing to really, absorb this kind of a talent. We, as a nation, we have not invested in manufacturing as a platform for developing talent, because the manufacturing sector is a very limited sector. Semiconductors is a very limited sector. So in other words, so context is very, very important. So that appreciation started coming now in universities, that we should develop courses for our own people, our own country's context. Okay, even in humanities, there is a need for sort of emphasizing what are the narratives that are supposed to be relevant for us. Okay, and things like that. These debates have come about now, and suddenly there is an emphasis on manufacturing. Now the manufacturing sector is picking up. Now there is a defense sector is picking up, and there are other, even semiconductor sector, which is picking up. And, engineering side to a certain extent is going to be addressed like that. But in humanities, in every sector you need professional people for various jobs. Okay, you need a person for sales, you need a person for marketing, you need a person for engaging with government. You need a person to write about websites. You need a person for, so there a whole lot of opportunities exist. The moment you have a certain type of context, if at all we are able to actually sort of expand the pie, okay, opportunities will increase for every sector, every domain. We will have more opportunities. So since we were essentially a service sector based economy, a lot of service sector jobs were there. Now that is changing. If you have more manufacturing, then the allied jobs are also going to pick up. Every company would want to develop their own corporate communication department. And who is going to basically give corporate communication? Probably people who are trained in English. BA English is going to be if you have a specialization in corporate communication, they'll study corporate communication and become employable in companies to make sure that the communication is appropriate for various stakeholders. Okay, so in other words, the opportunities are emerging. Okay, for every field. See, right now I have actually less number of people applying for jobs, even though at SRM we have so many students. I think our total number of students is 100,000 students. And I'm talking about in humanities, we have a lot of students. There are jobs, but people are not applying. We post some, every week there are, 20, 30 job postings that are there. In all, there are 150 job postings. Okay. And we are inviting people to apply. Only limited number of people apply. Now that's bigger problem, People want actually, in the undergrad education, they don't want to get into job. They want to pursue, higher degree. Then they want to get into job. So that itself is a mental block. So get into a sort of a framework, get into the opportunities that exist right now. All of these opportunities are quite diverse. So many startups are now recruiting. They want a person to basically talk to their customer. Okay, an in-person conversation. A good communicator is needed who has a good understanding about products. And all of these are possible. The companies themselves are training people. But the general lack of interest is actually is the problem rather than jobs itself.
Okay, I would like to carry the conversation forward. I would like to make two quick observations. Now, the question is, are the humanities being sidelined? Now, even though I come from the humanities, I am a student of English language and literature. I do admit that, yes, the humanities are sidelined. Now, if you inquire as to why the humanities are being sidelined, the answer is obvious. Now, education is an investment. Now, for any investment, you look for returns. Now, what are the options available for students who study the humanities? The employment opportunities, the job opportunities, they are not forthcoming, so they are scarce. So if I invest something, then I look for returns. Now, where there are no returns, then there is a lot of hesitation. Fine. Now, having said this, I would also add that since Professor Vinay was talking about the West, like in the West, particularly in the US, it is all STEM, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Even though academics are fighting hard for the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to expand STEM into STEAM, STEAM. So in addition to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, can there be a dose of arts? Can there be something from the humanities so that eventually it becomes interdisciplinary and holistic? So therefore, coming back to the question, yes, the humanities are being sidelined. The reason is not many employment opportunities.
Right. Actually, there are still 210 questions unanswered.
Just one
Yes, sir.
point, actually. The point is, it's correct that in terms of the scale of opportunities, uh, you can't compare the opportunities of humanities to engineering, but there are opportunities. I mean, I'm saying, so in fact, This is one of the campaigns that we do every week. We are trying to collect students to a job process. Okay, we're literally asking them to apply. There is always a sort of a team of students who are continuously talking to their counterparts that you should apply. That application itself is not coming, and after applying, when the company shortlists, the person doesn't show up for the interview. So these are some of the challenges, because generally there is this perception that people who enter into undergrad program, they have this perception that they will do the next degree sometime later or immediately after that. So that itself is actually a very wrong notion. They can actually work for 2 years and probably then get into a PG program, because that will make much better sense. You'll understand industry also a little bit before you do another program. So that's a sort of a shift that is needed also, in addition to what Dr.
Yeah. As I was saying, I'm lost in this maze of there are not 212 unanswered questions, and we don't have the time. But I think a lot of the questions you've already answered in your replies and this thing. So basically, I think students also have to, as you just mentioned, they have to be empowered, and they really have to take the ownership of what they are learning, and then try to develop it further passionately and acquire the skill sets, I think, for a lifelong success. That is how I see it. So I think we have a small AV presentation before we finally wrap up the program. I would request the Hindu team, please, to play the AV now. The Hindu team. If there's a technical glitch again, please let me know, the Hindu team.
Institute of Science and Technology.
Ma'am is not audible.
You're muted.
Yeah, no, I was saying that I think there's some problem with the AV quality also, and we're not able to play it properly. So I think we'll draw the curtains on today's webinar. And as we understand that as parents and students, community and industry, educators and policymakers, we really need to understand that there is a world beyond the conventional frameworks of education. And through education, we really need to craft experiences for our students. So as the topic said, that there's a world beyond medicine and engineering and a world beyond mark sheets, and that is perhaps a world which seeks a balance between rapidly advancing technology and human interface and also human interactions. The study of humanities and science can help to facilitate this process and offer solutions to local and global problems with a human touch, because the true purpose of education is to train the mind to think out of the box for organic growth. The change we create in our education system today will perhaps shape the world for a better society to live in. So I thank you all for joining today's webinar on Beyond Mark Sheets, Building Real-World Skills Through Humanities and Sciences. This was the first edition in a new three-part series titled Future Career Conversations, presented by the SRM Institute of Science and Technology and the Hindu, essentially to guide class 12 students and undergraduate aspirants on how, by considering humanities and science as their course of study, they could open up exciting careers and options, and it will enable them to make a meaningful difference in the world. So thank you all once again for sparing your time and tuning in for today's webinar. Thank you.
Ma'am, it was great interacting with you. Thank you. And great interacting with Professor Vinay. Thank you, sir. And my thanks to Ms. Kritika also of the Hindu. So it was great. Thank you all. And
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Doraraj, and thank you all the participants. It was a great show. Thank you.
Yeah, for their questions, I think the session became more interesting. Thank you, everybody, once again.
Yeah.